It's not about Bitcoin, the underlying technology.
Unbanked populations that can't get access to capital.
They don't have access to a bank account.
Musicians can earn a living through cryptocurrencies.
在区块链世界当中，Uber 这种公司不需要存在。
Do you think some of the financial institutions will be replaced?
We don't believe it.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Switzerland is very strong in watches, and then the first digital watches came from Japan. This time we think we should not miss it.
瑞士在我脑海里是塞根迪尼画布上让人垂涎的阿尔卑斯山，是被誉为天堂入口的刘森，也是尼采口中地球上最迷人的角落。这里还有联合国的日内瓦总部，聚集了银行家的班霍夫大街以及众多名人影视的故居。然而，我第一次来到瑞士，目的地却是旅行家们清单上没有的地方——楚格。
We have only about 130,000 inhabitants here. In Switzerland, we have our rankings. Which canton is best in economy, in social welfare? We are always on top.
楚格州的首府楚格市很小，老城街道狭窄，没有摩天大楼，没有车水马龙。但它不仅是瑞士最富有的城市，也是全世界最富裕的区域之一。
We know about 30,000 companies registered here in Zug, in a small place.
楚格市的居民不到3万，却有3万家国际企业注册在这里，被戏称“一人一公司”。而最近，这个古老城市又多了一个新名字——加密谷。
In this environment, we have over 500 startups, associations, and researchers, independent organizations working on crypto topics.
Here in Zug, it's normal nature. It's you go to lunch and everybody is talking about blockchain.
Cryptocurrencies could possibly be very interesting for companies here, and Switzerland is a place where this was at the forefront.
One of the good things in canton of Zug is when you establish a company, you have to have a deposit account, right?
I see.
But that deposit account can be in Bitcoin.
I see.
In the last 3 years, and it was after Ethereum Foundation came, it's the first time that I feel a wave of startups. Most people from outside, they think that we as government, we put a strategy named blockchain strategy 5 years ago and we invested a lot of money. And this was not the case. So I always say there is no blockchain strategy. We have the policy on a good overall framework for every company. And I guess that within 5 years, the blockchain technology will be a normal technology.
“我是一加，区块链把我带到了世界的更多地方。加密谷楚格的故事告诉我，和互联网不同，区块链时代不再是硅谷为中心的故事，它将有自己的轨道，而楚格只是这个新旅程的一站。很多地方都差不多同时进入了区块链应用开发与创业的蓬勃期，这一切似乎都和以太坊的诞生息息相关，因为它区块链技术从数字货币进入到了智能合约的时代。
Ethereum, I hesitate to call it Bitcoin 2.0. That term has sort of lost its meaning.
When Ethereum came out, that really skyrocketed, particularly in the enterprise.
因为公有链它本质上是个基础设施，它上面可以跑出各种各样的应用出来。
Can you share your childhood dream?
I'm not sure. What childhood dreams did I have? I don't know.
I'm from Toronto, and another founder of the Ethereum project, Anthony Diorio, is from Toronto. I went back to Toronto to visit my family over Christmas in 2013 and figured I should reach out to this guy, Anthony. And so we spoke on the phone. He mentioned that this guy named Vitalik Buterin.
Vitalik is a brilliant young man.
我认识他的时候，他只有19岁，现在可能就23岁吧。
Vitalik wrote the white paper and started sharing it more and more.
Vitalik 第一次来到中国，在14年3月份他就来了，在峰会上面也提到了这个 Ethereum 以太坊。
He was so famous. I'm sure he gets mobbed by people everywhere.
I heard about it in early 2011. I heard about it from my dad. Initially, I thought that there was no way that Bitcoin would work. So I spent some time researching it. I spent some time writing articles for Bitcoin Weekly. And over time, I just became more and more convinced that like it could work and that this would be something that could become very interesting. In 2013, I was already working in the blockchain space for 2 years, and I saw that there was a lot of interest in and growing interest in blockchain applications going beyond just currency. I realized that there were so many different applications that you could possibly do on a blockchain and that people were interested in doing on blockchains, but the platforms that existed at the time were only really designed to do one application, or maybe to do a small number of applications. I wanted to do Ethereum in the first place is because I wanted to just make it easier for people in general to build decentralized applications.
Summer 2015, we were in a small office. It was a very stormy afternoon in New York City. We had Dawn and Alex Tapscott visiting us in the office, and we all watched in amazement as many different people around the world downloaded the client. Many different people in the world ran some software that scoured the blockchain. All these people, based on some suggestions, self-organized the network into existence, and they all turned it on, ran the software at roughly the same time, and all the different nodes connected with one another for the first time. It was pretty remarkable.
And I think the value of smart contracting platforms like Ethereum could be very, very significant. John Chambers, who's the CTO of Cisco Systems, says that if the internet were a private company, it would be worth $20 trillion. That's how much value it creates in the economy. So Ethereum, it could be worth zero if it fails and something else does it better. But if it wins, it could be worth trillions of dollars.
Vitalik 对区块链的最大贡献，就是在数字货币之外，实现了区块链更广泛的应用可能——智能合约。在上个世纪90年代，尼克·萨博就提出了智能合约的概念，几乎与互联网同龄。它的本质是一个可以自动执行的计算机程序，不需要任何人监督执行，只要出现启动的行动，就必然产生固定的结果。然而，它一直未被实践。Vitalik 在区块链上看到了实现智能合约的机会，并把它变成了现实。
The interesting thing about smart contracts on Ethereum, as opposed to what people call smart contracts on other platforms. So platforms like Bitcoin achieve consensus on the data. Ethereum achieves consensus on both the data and the programs.
你可以看以太坊，它这个项目，它很有意思，它提出来智能合约嘛。那智能合约的意思就是说，它让你每一个人都可以在上面写一些代码，去实现一些功能。
So anything that you can imagine happening on the World Wide Web can and will soon be able to happen on Ethereum. An adjacent music industry platform, an adjacent film industry platform, a supply chain track and trace management platform, advertising technology platform, a poker platform, a health signal platform. So a wide variety of activities going on. A lot of work in the energy industry as well.
2015年，以太坊主网发布后，迅速成了行业的新星。17、18年更是跟随币价上涨，成了圈内外的焦点。在这2年时间里 ，Ethereum 一词的谷歌搜索量超过1.1亿次，推特上每天标签 Ethereum 的推文平均有2万条。2017年11月，一款基于以太坊平台打造的养猫游戏 Crypto Kitties 迷恋猫上线了。这款游戏提供的虚拟养猫游戏体验并不新奇，真正刺激的是交易这些猫咪可能带来的巨额回报。2018年9月初，一只名叫 Dragon 的虚拟猫卖出了600个以太币的价格，当时价值17万美元。
Well, I work in blockchain, so somebody told me pretty early about the project before they launched. Here are my cats if they ever load.
Wow. How many cats do you have?
142.
Wow, that's a lot. Show me how to get a cat and how this kitty works.
You basically have to have Ether and MetaMask. So MetaMask is a Chrome extension that will allow you to send Ether payments to websites. If you don't have any crypto kitties, you just go to the marketplace, and let's say I want to buy this one. So if you have a crypto kitty, you can sell it just like when you bought it. You can breed it with another crypto kitty to create a third crypto kitty.
Since Bitcoin emerged on the scene in 2008, everyone was just trying to repeat Bitcoin's success. ICOs were in a fervor, cryptocurrency was dominating headlines, and a lot of promises were being made about the industry as a whole, but not a lot of teams were actually delivering product. Not a lot of people were talking about blockchain in an approachable way, or, in my opinion, an interesting way. One of our missions with CryptoKitties was to provide mainstream audiences, everyday consumers, with an opportunity to experience blockchain technology for themselves, and ideally in a fun and interesting way.
Did you guys know it would be really popular?
Yes and no.
这款游戏上线之前，以太坊网络的日交易量大约徘徊在50万左右，但上线不到1个月，以太坊的日交易量就突破了100万。
Did that happen?
I believe within a week or two.
What's so fun about this?
It's fun. It's fun to collect them. They don't take up any room in your house. They're valuable. You can really sell them on this marketplace.
What kind of people are playing CryptoKitties?
It's still a pretty challenging game for the average mainstream user. But I think people who are a little bit tech savvy, or their friends maybe sent them Ether, they can figure this out.
We were responsible for 10 to a little bit past 25% of Ethereum's traffic for a long period of time. I say this every time this comes up, but as close as Ethereum came to melting down, we didn't anticipate this level of popularity this soon. And yes, it was unintentional, but at the same time, our team was getting hate mail from people who were trying to run ICOs and had to reschedule them and things of that effect.
迷恋猫的出现给高冷的区块链行业打开了连接大众的一扇窗，但很快又让区块链陷入了尴尬。一款游戏就造成了以太坊网络的拥堵。
以太坊呢，当时的设计呢，其实这个是目前这个行业发展到这个阶段，我们在反思的一个问题。为什么会发生这种情况？其实一路走过来，它背后有很多原因。因为 Bitcoin Network 当时就面临这样的一个问题。从最开始加密货币的理念开始，它要建立一个对等的网络，就是一个 peer to peer 的 network。它对等网络，它是一个信息对称的网络。在 Bitcoin Network 里面，你通过任何一个节点，你都可以获知这个网络所有的信息。这和我们中心化的网络是不一样。比如说，你不可能 能知道 Google 所知道的所有的信息 ，Google 只会推送给你他想给你的，或者你想知道的一部分信息，你不可能知道整个互联网的信息，这是不可能的事情。那信息对等的网络呢，必然就会面临着它通过技术的冗余，它通过比如说全世界有1万多个全节点互相备份，来保证这个网络是绝对的安全，来让网络的这个公平和对等实现最大化，但是它的效率反而是最低下的。所以也就会造成说去撸一只猫，然后玩个撸猫的游戏 ，CryptoKitty 可能这个网络就会拥堵。但是效率是不是互联网发展的未来的一个唯一的主张和追求？我觉得发展到今天，其实人们在开始反思，对吧？比如说像 Facebook， 为什么一家公司有这么大的权利去把这个数据如何去管理，如何去保护好用户的隐私？难道效率一定是正确前进的方向吗？一边是效率，一边是 decentralization， 那这两个呢，基本上从这个分布式网络设计的角度上来说，它是不可融合的矛盾，所以你必须要有所取舍。
I'm spending a lot of my time on working on scalability solutions for Ethereum. Proof of stake is a new way for a blockchain to come to consensus without relying on large amounts of energy for proof of work mining. This is something that we have been working on for 3 years.
Proof of stake 权益证明机制是什么？它和工作量证明机制有什么不同？为什么它可以有助于区块链的扩容 ？Sonny King， 中本聪之后，区块链世界里又一位神秘人物。他从未在公开场合露面，互联网上也没有任何他的个人信息。而他在2012年创造的 Peercoin 是首个基于权益证明机制的数字货币，带来了整个区块链技术领域扩容之路的新思路。
The proof-of-stake consensus was introduced by Peercoin project in 2012. The thesis was that the proof-of-stake alone can support distributed consensus without the need of energy consumption. Bitcoin's proof-of-work consensus, on the other hand, depends on the massive consumption of energy, which limits the technology's scalability and efficiency. Without these limitations, blockchain technology can then scale to millions of independent chains operating a diverse and prosperous economy. Proof-of-stake consensus uses a built-in token to assign weight. The weight given to one's decision-making power is in proportion to one's token amount held, also known as the stake. This approach eliminated the need for energy consumption, thus freed the blockchain technology from the efficiency and scalability limitations associated with proof-of-work consensus.
早在2014年1月 Vitalik 就开始研究 POS， 但直到2017年10月底，以太坊才发布 POS 系统 Casper 的首份技术文件，至今还未能正式实施。以太坊要完成采用权益证明机制的转型，为什么这么难？
Ethereum chose to focus on the issue with nothing at stake. Ethereum is also attempting a hybrid design, which may not benefit from the main innovation of proof-of-stake consensus that freed the blockchain technology from the limitation of energy consumption. My guess is that these choices have also made its design overly complex and costly to implement. But in any case, I'm happy to see a major network adopt the proof-of-stake consensus technology, even if it is just partially.
I'm also spending some time on just researching various improvements to the Ethereum protocol that can be made and seeing how they can be kind of implemented most easily.
I was in Ithaca, right in this very office actually, and Vlad Zamfir from the Ethereum Foundation was visiting, and we were talking about sharding and scaling Ethereum. He was spending a fair bit of time here, and somewhere in the middle of it he said, well, you know, this DAO thing is going to be big. It sounds like it'll be, you know, we thought it'd raise a few $1 million.
DAO 指的是去中心化自治组织，隋阮教授提到的则是知名的 DAO 组织 The DAO， 它是一个去中心化的风险投资基金，以智能合约的形式运行在以太坊区块链上，不由任何人或组织控制。参与者发送以太币，获得 DAO 代币，持有代币的成员通过投票决定将 The DAO 筹集的以太币资金投资到哪些项目中。
The DAO, the idea behind it was to build a decentralized, autonomous organization you could compare to a company with like 15,000 founders, something like putting money into one pot and say, when we govern this money, we can now vote how this money is used. They could put it into charities, they could buy products and services which they then would sell, or do something else with it. So this was the idea of the DAO, of a lot of people, like a big joint bank account, you could say, which with so many owners, they together control the money and see how it's spent. This was the idea behind it.
This might potentially be very, very big because people really happen to love it. There's a lot of momentum behind it. And it's dangerous, right? If there is a contract that's vulnerable that attracts so much money, it's dangerous. So I decided to look at it. Vlad Zamfir and Dino Mark and I, the three of us put together various different bugs we found in the DAO. Meanwhile, the DAO had been started. It had started to actually attract money. This thing only collects money for 28 days, and then it starts being able to make decisions of being able to give the money out, and it becomes vulnerable at that point. So we started writing up our findings, and we're working against time now. If the 28th day hits and we haven't published, then the public will be vulnerable. So at some point, I think around day 25 or so, I just went public with the document.
How many bugs did you find?
The time I made it public, it was 6 bugs. And over the course of the next few days, we extended that to about 9. On line 666, there appeared to be a reentrancy error. That is a weird quirk of how Ethereum works is when a contract is about to pay out, it doesn't just give you money, it gives you money and it jumps to some code in your wallet that you provide so that you can receive the money and then comes back and continues on. So that allows the recipient to actually interfere with the functioning of the person sending the cash. And when I looked through this code, it appeared to me a hacker could jump in, could demand a little bit of money, and when the DAO code jumps to his wallet to give him the money, the intention is his wallet will take some simple actions, like report something, send him a notification, that kind of thing. Instead, what he could do, a cleverly crafted piece of code that he places, could have his wallet call the DAO back, so that in the process of giving you, say, $10, you force me to go back to the beginning, go through the same logic to determine if I owe you $10, and then give you another $10, and again, and again, and again. That's why it's called reentrancy. It was a June day, and I was very, very sick. My son had gotten some kind of a cold, and so I was in bed with a miserable summer cold. My eyes were tearing. I just hated life and everything. So I couldn't really look into whether or not the bug was exploitable. So I picked the smartest graduate student who knows the area, and I wrote him a message saying, hey, I think there's a reentrancy bug. Can you take a look? And he looked into it and came back to me and said, well, I don't think it's exploitable. And this is one of many other suspicions I've had about code. Like, this is how these code audits actually work. You have 20 suspicions and then only a subset of which turn out to be actual problems. So when he said it's unexploitable, I said, okay, well, if he says so, then it probably is not exploitable. And so I wrote it off as one of the many different things that we explored but did not pan out. So I remember that morning very well. I got woken up. I was in Washington, D.C., and I got a call that says, you gotta wake up, there's something big going on. and there was a flurry of activity, and we didn't know what was happening. All we could see was that the amount of money in the DAO was rapidly declining.
I mean, in the beginning, I felt very overwhelmed when I saw how much money went into the DAO.
I was working on an Ethereum client with the security team, so I was kind of watching what was happening. This is about midnight, local time in California, I think, or a bit before, maybe 10 in the evening or so. I just was looking at the DO on the Etherscan, and then you saw a lot of weird transactions and Ether sort of leaving the main DO and going into this other smart contract that we realized was then another instance of the DO. Suddenly you see like this hack happening, and Ether was at like $19. It had already dropped to like $18. And you kind of knew that things were gonna crash.
We have looked at it, we gave it several members of the Ethereum community which are leading there. We had excellent advisors, we had a company looking at the code, nobody found it. Sometimes I wish I would just have more time, like 1 month, just looking at a contract without changing it and seeing, maybe then I would have found it, I don't know.
It wasn't exactly the application writer's fault that they did not realize this quirk. Many people had looked over this code and they were blind to it. The community as a whole did not understand reentrancy well at the time.
The Ethereum protocol itself has been very secure, but Ethereum makes it very easy for anyone to shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah, it's very easy to build a smart contract that, you know, can be hacked in different ways.
Can DAO fix it? Is that possible?
It was not possible to fix it or patch it on the fly.
Why?
This is one of the ethos of smart contracts. So you want the smart contract to not be modifiable on the fly. You don't want anybody to have control over it, typically. And in particular, the DAO, if it's going to make financial decisions and if it's going to be in possession of $220+ million, you don't want somebody else coming in and saying, hey guys, the rules of the game have changed and now I take a cut or whatever else. So that's why they did not add any such measure. Once the DAO was deployed, it was impossible to stop.
This was not what anybody expected. So this was already something which I had to digest, you could say. Of course, then when the hack happened, it was just full-time working on helping people to get their money back. This was the only thing I had in my mind.
I was one of the first guys to kind of ping everyone that something started. There were multiple people who saw it, even, you know, just a few minutes after. Vitalik, Gavin Wood, Christopher, Jens from Slockit, and several other core developers. And everyone was sort of, you could hear in the voice, everyone was sort of, you know, it was very tense.
The only response at the time was for Vitalik and other people, but Vitalik was the main person, to spam the network, to try to slow down how many transactions it could do so as to push back on the attacker to sort of keep the drain from taking place. People often say, you know, Vitalik has single-handed control over Ethereum, this and that. Vitalik had no control over Ethereum. He was reduced to spamming his own network to try to slow down the hack.
面对黑客盗贼的疯狂攻击，仿佛所有人都束手无策。社区内出现了一群神秘的程序员，他们自称“白帽子黑客军团”。他们的计划是以盗制盗，在黑客抢夺完资金之前，通过攻击相同漏洞的方式把资金抢先盗走。
So this was called the DAO wars. And basically, this hacker got the money, but he didn't really get it. It was just like in an account which was frozen for a while. And the rest of the money was still there.
The exact bug, or actually a combination of bugs that were executed when the DO got hacked, the DO effectively spawned like a child DO. It kind of cloned itself. And then the attacker had some control over that clone. And all the tokens, all the Ether was stuck in that clone. And then you had this sort of cat and mouse game where you could actually counteract and hack by hacking that child DO.
So the White Hat hacker said, or the Robin Hood group said, well, before he or someone else gets it, let's get this money so we can give it back to the people. And so then they tried to fight also the hacker to get his money, and this was a long fight. So you can see a lot about the governance of Ethereum. So we, for example, really couldn't do anything. This was decentralized, autonomous organization. Nobody had control over it.
What ended up happening is that the hacker stopped at some point, and he picked the 53 million mark. And then everything came to a standstill.
Did law enforcement jump in, like to help you guys?
So shortly after this whole episode kind of ended, I ended up coming to my office, and the red light on my phone was on, and I picked up, and it was a voicemail message, and it was from an FBI office, and he's like, I would like to talk to you. And I thought, okay, that sounds great. I'm walking back, and then on the way back, I panic because I realize I have no idea why they want to talk to me. It could very well be that they think I'm the DAO hacker. So the next day, I was on the phone with 3 FBI officers and 2 attorney generals from 2 different states. They wanted to understand what exactly happened and what the covenant was that people had entered and whether or not they should prosecute. There aren't that many lawsuits where man has sued a robot. And this is one of those cases where the thing at fault is some kind of a robot and how it was programmed. We haven't seen any prosecution fall out of the DAO bug. They did not know exactly where to look to retrace the steps of the hacker.
Still, we don't know who is behind it.
I do not know.
Do you think Vitalik did the right decision to do the fork?
Absolutely, but it wasn't Vitalik's decision. There was a very interesting meeting. It happened in this very building. We were holding an Ethereum boot camp, and the heavier cannons of the Ethereum world were all here. I shouldn't say that. And the main question, at least for me, that I asked immediately was, well, you can tell me the truth about what it is that you intend to do with Ethereum. If you're going to go after illicit money flows, there's absolutely no way you could retrace anything. You can't do a hard fork of any kind. But if you're going to go after a much bigger dream of a world computer that is used for all sorts of everyday activities and societally good outcomes of smart contracts, then you can do what is right, and you can do what the community demands of you. And without any hesitation, Vitalik and others said, no, we want to build a world computer. We are not interested in these illegal activities.
If we cannot correct any bug, like this kind of thing can happen anytime, that means we are going to put programs, codings into blockchain, right? So, and that's immutable. So that means we will have trouble after trouble.
Absolutely. It shows great maturity to break through the simple narrative of code is law. Code is not law. The law is law. Okay? We are not minions at working for machinery. Now people understand that these things are not going to be bug-free. The underlying infrastructure is also not bug-free, and we will have to have better measures for dealing with them.
2014年的时候，我们上海有7个志同道合的伙伴，我们说我们要做一件事情，结果做了一个什么呢？就是我们当时那个项目叫小蚁，后来叫做 Neo。这个项目其实比以太坊还要早，但是跑得比以太坊很慢。然后呢，我又认识了以太坊的创始人 Vitalik， 我还邀请这个以太坊创始人 Vitalik 到中国来做 roadshow。这是14年5月份的时候，这个其实是以太坊全世界范围当内第一次路演，就在中国。那个时候我们就对以太坊非常看好。一直在以太坊上做事情，因为觉得以太坊真的不错。直到16年的6月份，以太坊发生了一件事情叫 DAO。我那时候还是有一点这种怎么说呢，就是说完美主义者的这种想法，就是说区块链嘛，你是个不可篡改的账本。那如果你的币被偷了，你不能说我为了把这些币追回来以后，我去改账本。但是Vitalik当时的创始人他说我一定要去改账本，去把它 hard fork， 把它分成2个账本。当时是不支持，而且我当时开会的时候，我就直接对着Vitalik大叫，我说我代表中国社区，我反对分叉，因为我跟他关系很好嘛。 他还是做了。那我后来说这个东西不靠谱，这个东西不靠谱。当时对以太坊的看法就不靠谱，所以我说如果是这样的话，我自己搞一个。第二年就是17年的2月11号，我们真的把项目给做起来了，就真的是按照我们原定的计划去做出来这样一个完全自主开发的一条公有区块链。
越来越多人在拓展区块链技术时，看到了建设底层基础设施的重要性。以太坊的出现打开了公链新的思路，它承载了巨大的期望，但也暴露了现有的缺陷，激发了其他的开发者们投入了一场造链运动。
所以这个是 Quantum 最
微链的
into Aeon， 像星云链
on the Tezos blockchain。
以太坊它有一些设计是很有问题的，就是说它的理念是人人都可以写智能合约。那问题就是说，如果我刚刚从大学毕业，我没有一些经验，但是我会写 Solidity， 我可以在以太坊上编程吗？可以的。那我整个的以太坊主链不是变成了一块试验田了吗？我一直要干的问题，就是我认为啊，就是我们讲区块链这个事情，我们的看法是这样的，就是说，最终使用区块链的人还是普通的商人，而不是程序员。不要去写代码，表单，你要数字化什么资产，资产名字叫什么，多少个，精度是多少，什么时候发，以后可不可以再增发？也就是说，我们的口号就是说，你做的最好的事情，把区块链留给我们，我们是提供商。
因为整个 Bitcoin 它设计了一套非常精巧的一个，像 Bitcoin 每天大概处理30万笔交易，以太坊每天处理100万笔交易，但是还是不够的。但是现在社区里面也有很多 solution 去解决这个问题。那一种解决方法，像 EOS 或者说像其他的一些项目，它可能通过减少这个 network 的这个全节点的数量，然后呢就是来牺牲它的这个 decentralization， 然后来获得更高的效率。比如说它的全节点可能像 EOS 只有21个节点，对。然后那21个节点去记账获得21个节点的共识的认可，它肯定比你要在7000个节点或者说2万个节点做广播要快很多。那我们在做的是什么？我们还是说维持底层的这个 Layer 1， 我们把它叫做第一层的协议。这个 Layer 1的协议呢，足够的 decentralization， 我把它维持好。那效率怎么取得呢 ？OK， 我搭建不同的层次，我搭建 Layer 2， 像 Bitcoin Network， 像 Lightning Network， 闪电网络 State Channel， 对，然后像那个 Ethereum 上也有，比如说像那个分片然后 sharding， 包括像 Plasma， 它搭建很多 Layer 2的这个 solution。
Around the world, we saw like thousands and thousands of projects launching on different blockchains. One part of our hypothesis is that there will be many chains, many public chains, many protocols, and many private chains, and they're all going to have to kind of coexist with each other. The challenge became that if we were going to connect all these blockchains, many of them are written with different protocols. You have Ethereum, Bitcoin, EOS, Cardano, Aeon. They all have slightly different nuanced ways of operating transactions, creating blocks, all of these things. We've been designing a function we call the bridge, which is a communication protocol between blockchains. There's an aspect of making sure that we can standardize the way messages are traded between different blockchains, even if those blockchains don't have the same DNA.
2017年，公链项目层出不穷。到2018年上半年，我们看到大批公链项目的集中上线，行业和资本向区块链的底层技术发展倾注了无限的热情和期望。而展望未来，公链的商业价值究竟在哪里？到底有多大呢？
你好，欢迎。
任何一件事物的发展都是有个过程的，所以说区块链最开始是从什么呢？是从数字货币开始的。数字货币，你可以看得到，就是下一步是什么？下一步可能是大家可以联想一下，说，哎，如果我货币可以数字化的话，那我其他资产是不是也可以数字化？那大家可以想到就是资产的数字化。那么这一步想完了以后，就想，哎，一个数字资产我怎么拿着呢？我一个物理的人 Eric 怎么拿住数字资产？我拿不住。 我必须要有个数字的身份，所以这个不能够跳，你不能直接就跳到那边去，然后后面才能有智能合约。
那所以你觉得就是说，像以太坊的出现，或者说智能合约这种提法的出现，是有点来得太早了？
太早了，你可以去拷问以太坊的，这个就是推崇的人，就是说有哪一个以太坊上面的应用有10万用户的，应该说是没有。也就是说，如果你是卖茶叶的，如果你是做商旅旅行的，没有问题，你不需要懂太多的区块链，你做好你的茶叶，你做好你的商旅出差，然后呢，你这边茶叶已经有30万的用户了，你这边商旅出差已经有50万用户了，没问题，放到区块链上，我们原件来帮你做区块链化，把你们的用户的数字身份放在区块链上，商旅出差的数字身份放在区块链上作为数字身份，然后呢，每样茶可以是一个数字资产，每一个商旅出差的记录都是放在区块链上不可篡改的，对吧？那么好，数字身份其实在同一个区块链上是打通的，你出差也可以去喝茶，你喝茶也可以出差，顺便等于是我们做了一个大的平台，用区块链的方式去把资产数字化，把记录纯正，把身份数字化，全部打通。
那这个不叫智能合约，你会叫它什么呢？
我觉得这是一个大的智能资产的一个网络。
Elon Musk 在这儿工作。
你们自己联想吧。
If you look at the cost of enterprise IT systems, they're mainly made up by human capital costs, right? How much do you pay your developers to create the system? How many people do you need to support the system? We believe we can reduce enterprise IT costs by up to 90%, on aggregate, by making it much simpler to develop enterprise IT systems. Right? We've got this concept called liquid development. You don't have databases, you don't have backup and restore, you don't have so many security issues. So, because there are fewer systems involved, the design is simpler, the maintenance is much simpler, and you don't need all these kind of outer layers of support. That's just one opportunity, but it's a very big opportunity. If Dfinity succeeds in delivering this, unbounded computation there in cyberspace, and that ultimately enterprises migrate their IT systems to and save such a vast amount of money, that's potentially $1 trillion chain just there.
公链竞争的成败，关键还看落地情况，但公链和企业间似乎有一层天然的屏障。
看现在，比如说Bitcoin 也好，还是 Ethereum 也好，还是新出来的其他的一些 public blockchain， 其实你非常少看到一些具体的企业应用，非常少。现在的公链呢，因为它是遵循的是一种这个 decentralization， 就是去中心化的一个设计，所以呢，它的 governance 就是治理结构有很大的欠缺。另外一个方面呢，我觉得就是现在的经济模型对很多的就是公有链是一个挑战，使得呢企业不愿意去用。为什么呢？因为企业会担心我在上面去实施应用的成本会有很大的波动，对吧？举个例子，这个17年年初的时候，可能以太坊才10块美金，现在1100美金，对吧？那这个企业它在去实施应用的时候呢，会觉得它的这个成本完全不可控。
所以第三方其实没有办法完全被 blockchain 取代。
我觉得一定程度之内是很难的，甚至在发展一个呢，我认为就是发展的过程中，它会起到一个 transition 的作用，它会从一个完全传统的方式 transition 到一个有 blockchain 的一个 mix 的形式。那另外一个呢，我觉得第三方呢，它的转变也会有两个阶段。第一个阶段呢，它可能是用它传统的一些专业知识，去让区块链的项目更加合规，或者更加运行的更加让投资人可以获得投资人更多的信任，更加公开、更加透明。第二个呢，就是未来它可能反过来再用区块链的技术，去让它的一些服务变得更高效、更透明、更公开，这两个不同的阶段。
It would be the perfect world would be everyone would be on a public chain. that's not going to happen anytime soon. So we're already seeing that type of trust boundary, or the lack of trust, would benefit from a public trustless network. So the private networks are going to continue as well. They have different optimization and pain points, from performance and scale, privacy and confidentiality, to make those markets work.
不管是以太坊，还是后来涌现的大批公链项目，他们期待用区块链技术来驱动的商业世界，离我们到底还有多远？这场公链之争，谁又会成为最后的赢家？还是会出现百花齐放的格局？我们只能跟随技术发展的脚步来慢慢揭晓谜底。但这些开发者们内心中用技术改变世界的野心已被点亮。今天，大批公链项目扎堆的情景，像极了互联网发展的初期。历史是否也会重演呢？
A lot of businesses shouldn't exist. Look at eBay. It's pretty much not changed since 1996. If even a company like Google can't continue to innovate once they become a monopoly.
The more we worked with companies, the more we realized that like most of the challenges were still not at the application layer, they were at the infrastructure layer.
你要在区块链上做非常那个叫 niche market， 就是小的垂直的一个小的应用的话，还早呢。我们要把 infrastructure， 我们要把那个底层的东西先做好。这个我们也许就变成先烈了，也许是会变成先烈的，但是我们愿意去做这件事情，总要有人去做的。
The reason why I wanted to do Ethereum in the first place is because, like, I wanted to just make it easier for people in general to build decentralized applications, and I think that like it's already succeeding quite a bit along that dimension. But we'll see where it goes from there.
以太坊我觉得应该有60%的因素可能是因为 ICO 带动了大家对它的认知。
UNICEF as an organization works in 135 countries around the world and has more than 12,000 staff who are dedicated to solving problems for children. And these are problems of education, access to information and healthcare, and how people deal with the world after an emergency. We live in a world where if you're poor, if you're disconnected from a system, you don't have access to the type of information that we take for granted. And in fact, a third of kids in the world have no birth registration. They don't exist in a formal system. There are 60 million children on the move right now because of war or violence. So 60 million kids who have no home, no government that they're attached to. And those are types of problems that information can help us solve if we know where young people are, if we know what their needs are. And if we can do that with fluidity that's not bound to a national border, if we think about an application of a distributed ledger technology that could allow us to understand information better, to have more transparency, or to create systems that are fundamentally decentralized but accessible, those are things that we think can empower UNICEF and the governments that we work with to do our job better.